It was a cold, quiet morning in New York City. The kind of morning where people rush past without looking at each other. Outside a small grocery store stood a single father named Daniel, holding his daughter's tiny hand tightly. 2 years ago, his wife had passed away suddenly, and since that day, life had become a constant struggle. Daniel worked late nights, skipped meals, and still barely managed to pay rent. That morning, his daughter looked up at him and asked softly, "Dad, can we buy milk today?" Daniel swallowed hard and checked his wallet again. Only a few dollars remained. He forced a smile, hiding his pain. Just then, across the street, a long black luxury car slowly stopped. A man stepped out, calm, confident, surrounded by security. Daniel didn't know it yet. But that man was a billionaire, and this ordinary morning was about to change everything. As Daniel waited outside the store, he noticed something unusual. The wealthy man reached into his pocket, and suddenly, a thick wallet slipped out and fell onto the road. The billionaire walked away without noticing. People passed by. Some clearly saw the wallet. No one stopped. Daniel's heart began to race. That money could solve many problems. For one painful second, he stood frozen. Then his daughter squeezed his hand and said, "Dad, you always tell me to be honest." Those words hit him hard. Without another thought, Daniel ran forward and shouted, "Sir, you dropped your wallet." The billionaire turned around, surprised. Their eyes met for the first time. The billionaire picked up the wallet and opened it carefully. Everything was inside: cash, cards, documents. He looked at Daniel and smiled. "Thank you," he said. "Most people wouldn't have returned this." Daniel replied quietly, "I'm just trying to raise my daughter right." That simple sentence changed the moment. The billionaire noticed the child's worn shoes, Daniel's tired eyes, and the empty grocery bag in his hand. He paused, then asked gently, "Are you struggling?" Daniel hesitated. Then he nodded. "Yes, every day, but I don't give up." The billionaire felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just honesty. This was character. The billionaire turned to his assistant and said calmly, "Cancel my next meeting." Then he looked back at Daniel. "May I help you today?" Daniel felt uncomfortable. His pride fought back. But before he could answer, his daughter whispered, "Dad, it's okay." They walked into the grocery store together. Daniel watched the cart slowly fill. Milk, fruits, vegetables, food he hadn't bought in years. At the counter, his hands trembled, his eyes filled with tears. "I'll never forget this," Daniel said. The billionaire replied softly, "This isn't charity. It's respect." If this story touched your heart even a little, please subscribe to the channel. New stories like this can change how we see life. Outside the store, the billionaire handed Daniel a card, a simple white card. He said, "Come to this address tomorrow morning." Daniel looked down. A massive corporate building address was printed on it. He felt confused and afraid. Why would someone so powerful help someone like him? That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Hope battled fear inside his heart. The next morning, holding his daughter's hand tightly, he stood in front of the tallest building he had ever seen. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and walked inside. Not knowing that this single step would change their lives forever. The glass doors closed behind Daniel as he stepped into the massive corporate building. Everything felt unfamiliar. Bright lights, polished floors, people in expensive suits. He held the business card tightly in his hand, afraid someone might tell him he didn't belong here. At the reception desk, a woman looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" she asked. Daniel swallowed his fear and said, "I was asked to come here by Mr. Williams." The receptionist's expression changed immediately. She picked up the phone and said softly, "He's here." Moments later, Daniel was guided toward a private office. His heart pounded with every step. This wasn't just a visit anymore. This was a test, and Daniel knew his future depended on it. Inside the office, Daniel sat across from a panel of executives. They looked confident, sharp, and powerful. One of them asked, "Do you have any formal qualifications?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, but I'm willing to work harder than anyone." Another asked, "Why should we trust you?" Daniel took a deep breath and said, "Because when no one was watching, I chose honesty." The room went quiet. Behind the glass wall, the billionaire watched silently. He wasn't looking at Daniel's resume. He was watching his character. After a long pause, one executive said, "We'll let you know." Daniel stood up, thanked them, and walked out, unsure if he had just failed or passed something deeper. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel returned to his old routine, long hours, late nights, tired mornings. He worked delivery jobs, cleaned offices, did anything he could to survive. Every night, he checked his phone. No calls, no messages. Doubt slowly crept into his mind. Maybe the interview was just kindness. Maybe nothing was coming. His daughter noticed the silence and asked, "Dad, did they forget you?" Daniel smiled softly and said, "No. Sometimes life just tests how patient we can be." But deep inside, fear whispered a painful question. What if this chance was already gone? One evening, exhausted and broken, Daniel sat alone on a park bench after work. His body ached. His hope felt heavier than his tired hands. He looked at the city lights and thought, maybe this is my limit. For the first time in years, he considered giving up on dreams and focusing only on survival. Just then, his phone vibrated. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Daniel hesitated. Then he answered. A calm voice said, "Daniel, this is Mr. Williams' office. We'd like you to come in tomorrow." Daniel closed his eyes. Tears rolled down his face. The test wasn't over yet. This channel is still new, but every subscribe gives us strength to share more real, meaningful stories. If you believe honesty matters, please subscribe. The next morning, Daniel stood once again inside the building. This time, he was taken directly to the billionaire's office. Mr. Williams stood near the window and turned around slowly. "I watched everything," he said. "Your honesty, your patience, your struggle." Daniel listened silently. The billionaire continued, "Skills can be taught. Character cannot." He placed a file on the desk and pushed it forward. Inside is a job offer. Daniel's hands trembled as he opened it. It wasn't just work. It was stability, dignity, hope. But the billionaire added one more line. "This is only the beginning." And Daniel knew. His life was truly about to change. Daniel's first day at work felt unreal. He wore a simple shirt, neatly pressed, and walked through the office with quiet confidence. People around him moved fast, spoke professionally, and for a moment, Daniel felt small again. But then he remembered his daughter's smile. He remembered the long nights and empty wallet. He focused on learning, listening carefully, asking questions, working harder than expected. Weeks passed. Daniel improved every single day. Mistakes became lessons. Fear turned into confidence. One afternoon, a manager said, "Daniel, stay back after the meeting." Daniel's heart raced again. Inside the office, the billionaire was waiting. I've read every report about you, he said. You don't just work hard, you lift others with you. Daniel didn't know what to say. The billionaire smiled slightly. Leadership starts quietly, and you have it. For the first time, Daniel realized this opportunity was becoming something bigger than survival. That evening, Daniel returned home earlier than usual. His daughter ran to him, surprised. "Dad, you're early." He knelt down and hugged her tightly. "I have good news," he said softly. For the first time in years, their fridge was full. Bills were paid. The house felt lighter. Daniel tucked his daughter into bed and whispered, "Things are changing now." As she fell asleep, Daniel sat alone in silence. He didn't think about money. He thought about dignity, and he promised himself, "If I ever have the power, I will help someone the same way." 1 year later, Daniel stood in a conference room, this time not as a worker, but as a leader. The billionaire addressed the room. "Today, we're opening a new division." Then he turned to Daniel, "And I want you to lead it." Daniel froze. Memories rushed back. The grocery store, the wallet, the fear. He nodded slowly, holding back emotion. Applause filled the room. Daniel looked down at his hands, the same hands that once held nothing. Now they held responsibility and purpose. Months later, Daniel stood outside the same grocery store. This time, he wasn't struggling. He was smiling. A tired man stood nearby, holding his child's hand. Daniel noticed the same fear he once carried. He walked over and said, "Let me help you today." The man hesitated. Daniel smiled and added, "Someone once helped me and changed my life." As Daniel walked away with his daughter, she looked up and asked, "Dad, why do you help people?" Daniel replied softly, "Because character is worth more than money." And sometimes, one honest moment can change everything. Stories like this remind us that character is worth more than money. If you want more inspirational stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us.